There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another special episode of Thrive Loud. Today, a Thrive Loud live episode if you're viewing on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I am so excited today because every time I reconnect with amazing people, I get pumped up. But when I get to reconnect with this individual, because of what's going on in the world right now, what she's got going on, and the message she's delivering, I am super thrilled because I bring you author, keynote speaker, strategy expert, and futurist. She's the author of A Future So Bright. She's a tech humanist. She's actually wearing the sunglasses that I think are on the book cover that she has. So she's on brand, CEO of KO Insights, solving human problems at scale. Oh, there it is with the book and everything for our listeners. Kate O'Neill. Hi, Kate. How are you?
Lou, I'm so good. I'm happy to see you.
So let me tell you why I'm so excited to have you on, aside from the obvious that, by the way, she really is on brand. For listeners who need to see this, she's literally got her purpley blue color, which is the color of her book, which she's holding. She's got them on the top of her head because she's always got this bright, sunshiny outlook as this future is so bright. This is that I came across this week. I actually had a great conversation and listened to somebody speak that talked about, with all of the access that we have to the crazy things going on in our world right now, the pandemic, challenges in Afghanistan, floods and weather issues that are hurting everyone, and everyone's access to it from all the devices and all the technology out there. There is this absolute overwhelmingness of having to just deal with it. Sometimes it could be too much. And it could be our empathy, our capacity for empathy is tested. And here I am so excited because we have to balance all of this with the futurist and the humanist who's going to help us balance this out. So can you please explain to our listeners, how is our future so bright? Because it's hard to see it moving forward.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. Thanks for having me on your show, first of all. And I'm really glad to reconnect with you and your listeners and your viewers. I think this is, you really provide a service, a very bright, optimistic service, by constantly having conversations with people who are thinking about thriving, about how to, grow, how to be good leaders. And that's a part of what I think we need to steer ourselves into a bright future. So what's going on with this concept is that I think one of the pieces that I think we need to deconstruct right away is that we don't talk about the future very well. Mm-hmm. We've been sort of taught in culture to talk about the future as part of a dichotomy. It's either dystopia or it's utopia, right? Yeah. There's nothing in between. No one ever talks about maybe it's going to be some sort of both and middle ground or whatever. It's any new tech innovation. It's oh, how dystopian is this thing? It's well, maybe it's dystopian, or maybe it actually has sort of a both and, it can be used for good. And also we should rein it in and make sure it's used in appropriate ways and not allowed to exceed what it's good for. So I think that framing, that dystopia versus utopia framing, is actively harmful for us. So we need to really unpack that. And so what this book proposes is a way to think about the future with agency, with a sense that we actually create the future through the decisions that we make today. That every decision we make is actually building the future of the 5 minutes from now, or 5 hours from now, or 5 years from now, or 500 years from now. And that the more we kind of realize that and empower ourselves with that, it is a little bit maybe frightening and overwhelming in its own way, but I think it is also it's a beacon against the helplessness that I think we tend to feel in situations where we're dealing with exponential change and existential threats. So that's what I think. I think we're most missing the sense that we have something to do with the future, and we do. We make the future. So this is a way. I think this model, strategic optimism, is a model to help us feel empowered to make the changes we need to make to build that brighter future.
Before we go into how we can take the steps to be strategically optimistic, I want to rewind a little bit, Kate, and understand what was the spark that made you say, this is the message I need to share today?
Yeah, I think the pandemic was probably the spark where I'd been speaking about. I'd written Tech Humanist in late 2018, and that book is really about helping business think about using technology in a way that's more human-centric and aligned with what the business's purpose or objectives truly are, that also align with what humans inside and outside the business are trying to accomplish as they interact with that business. So digital transformation from a human perspective. And I'd been talking about that for the last several years. And more often, I just found that people were talking about how overwhelmed they felt by the rapid change in technology. People were talking about how much power and potential that technology had, and how it was worrying how much it was kind of changing the discussion and changing the capacity of what could be done. And I saw that also as a huge opportunity. So I've been a little plugged into the United Nations for the last few years, spoken for a couple of events there, spoke at the COP25 Climate Change Summit in Madrid, and led a conversation on how emerging technology could be used to fight climate change. And that, I think, was the beginning of thinking like, oh, there's a real conversation to be had around the potential for technology to undo some of what we've done and to use it in a really proactive way. But then when the pandemic really hit, I think the conversation began to turn to, we just don't know what to do. Everybody feels overwhelmed. Everybody feels so hopeless right now. Can you help? And so my thinking was, what that really gave us the opportunity to do was change our view, my view in particular, but I think a lot of us shifted from this very broad macro sense of how are we solving problems in the world to how can we solve problems for like a person. Yeah. A person is sitting right in front of us and is struggling and having a hard time. So what can I do to lift a little bit of the burden this person is feeling?
I love this message because this is in congruence with the message that I heard earlier this week, which was along the lines of, look, it's too over-encompassing to worry about all these other things that we have access to. And if we really focus maybe specifically on our immediate community or what we can control and focus on that sense of focus, is that, I guess, maybe one of your strategies in helping to get to this optimistic state?
Yeah, I think because a both and mindset is a really important framework for me. It's practically my religion. Like that's so much of how I tackle every problem that I'm faced with. Is there are nuances of truth to be dealt with in anything. And so the dealing with human scale problems, I think, was a way of grounding the meaningfulness of those problems, making sure that the problems that we're solving are actually the most fundamental human problems. Like, do people have what they need to actually function and thrive eventually in society? And if they don't, how can we make sure that they do? And that's why I think like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, for example, the 17 goals that lay out how we can actually address the quality of life on Earth for every human being and beyond human being, every form of life on Earth. Those are a really well-articulated set of goals. It's kind of a roadmap that's already designed and already devised for us to solve problems at scale. But they're at a very grounded, fundamental level. They're kind of addressing things like, making sure people are educated and making sure that air quality is good and water quality is good, and making sure that we have provided infrastructure for people to be able to flourish. And so, when you kind of get down to those levels, what I think is really powerful about that is that almost every business you could come up with, every organization, every entity is doing something that's in alignment with one of those 17 goals, generally speaking. Mostly they're in alignment in some way. And so what's been really cool over the last several years is to watch companies, even in their Twitter bios, for example, you can go to some companies and they will have like SDG number 4, spelled out in their bio as like, that's the goal that they're aligned with. And so this is kind of the overall model that I think that we can lean into a lot more mindfully and intentionally, is to recognize that there are fundamentally human problems that need to be solved in the world. And there are really, really big problems that are facing us kind of societally and at the macro level. And there's kind of a both and that needs to be addressed to solve them, to sort of stitch in between and make sure we're bringing those big problems down to human level and lifting solutions up from the human level to the humanity level.
Kate, when you speak and you deliver your message, it's interesting because like there's a lot of details in which you can go into and a lot of avenues that you can pick to tackle this. Does it become kind of like a little bit of a lesson learned as they're hearing the messages, or do you pick one specific area that you want to address when you're communicating your speeches? I know you have many different topics that you talk about, but I love specifically someone that's just written a book and has a very laid out message of what the book is about on how you're now delivering that message today.
Yeah, so I'm just opening the book to the table of contents to cite that there are so many applications of this idea in this book. So in the fifth part, part 5 of the book, Applying Strategic Optimism, I go through and look at how tech applies to tech and innovation, or sorry, how this bright future, the strategic optimism applies to tech and innovation, how it applies to climate change, how it applies to the future of work versus the future of jobs, and intelligent automation and what that's doing to the future of those entities, or the concept of work and jobs and the workplace. Talk about cities and the future of cities. And so, there's a lot more: privacy, education, truth and trust, how and what we eat, the future of energy. So really dug into a lot of different things. I had a team of PhDs helping me do the research, make sure this is a well-researched, really rigorous piece of work. But I think one of the ways that I can think about answering the question that you originally asked is that I've spoken with cities, for example, like Austin was a city I spoke to earlier this year. And when I'm dealing with the problems that are in the domain of a city, I want to use a lot of city-specific examples to give them kind of hope and encouragement. Hey, Vienna is doing this really cool thing around social housing. Other cities, Singapore, Melbourne, they're doing really cool, innovative things around 20-minute cities, making infrastructure available to everyone within 20 minutes of where they live, making sure that people can get to where they need to go and they have all the resources they need. So there's all these different kinds of really cool examples, but I think that it's oftentimes very enlightening for a leader to hear about examples from another domain, to kind of think about what's somebody doing in tech startups that could apply to our city, or what's somebody doing in cities that could apply to our energy company, or whatever. And I think that cross-pollination is going to be extremely good for us as we look ahead and try to think about, what's ahead, what do we need to solve for, what's meaningful. So this framework I introduced in the book talks about how meaning is always about what matters, and innovation is about what's going to matter. And so when we think about innovation in that way, it's a very human-centric way to think about innovation. It helps us think about the problems that we're facing and the problems that we need to solve in this way that kind of breaks it down. Like, we don't need to boil the ocean, to use a really unfortunate too on the nose analogy or expression. We just need to solve the problems that matter. What's going to matter in the world ahead of us. And that, I think, is a relatively clear thing if we hone in the right way. And so there are a lot of tools in this book to help us do that. I think we're drowning in opportunities just as we're drowning in exhaustion. And I think kind of separating out and saying, okay, this is what we need to focus on is really going to help us make that change.
I think that nails it. It's that overwhelmingness that's out there, and being able to give a better perspective is kind of the way that you should look forward to it, to have a glass half full. We keep going back to the water analogy in some way. Kate, the writing process. I love asking authors this question. 2 questions with this. One, did you enjoy putting this project together, and how did it compare to your previous work?
Yeah, it is enjoyable. I think, writing is sort of second nature to me. But writing a book is one of the most unnatural things you can possibly do. So, you're sort of forcing the constraints around your thinking and around how you're delivering a thought, and making sure that you elaborate enough, and then also you don't go too far off of your original concept. It's a lot to do it during a pandemic, and all the other stuff that's going on is also a lot. But I think, to me, what was really encouraging about this is that every time I talked with anyone about the work I was putting together, man, the reaction has just been so consistently, that is what we need right now. Like there is nothing we need more than a hopeful and strategic look at the future. Like, teach us.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's so timely, and why I was so excited to have you back on. Listeners need to know, like, when people like Kate are busy and they're in the book launching mode, they're busy, they're tough to track down, and I like we connected in over the summer in July, and she showed us the book cover, and it was not only because of the colors, and by the way, the same glasses that are, put the book cover back up again so viewers can see. When you showed it to us, it actually made me smile. And I thought about that afterwards, and I go, that's something that we all need, maybe more than anything else. And I was like, I got to get her on the show, and when she's in book promo mode. So I'm glad to have you back on, and thank you for taking the time to do it. Yeah,
me too. Yeah, the sunglasses are definitely a little bit of an in joke to people who know me. You know, if you know me, you know you've never seen me without sunglasses on my head. True. That's like a fact. And so when
I used to think it was
first...
a hair clip between you and me. I thought it was some kind of,
honestly,
but I don't have to deal with those things, you know.
I cannot deal with my hair falling in my face. Yeah, so it's been decades that I've had sunglasses on top of my head. I do not sleep with them on. I do not shower with them on. But other than that, they're on 24/7. But the funny thing about this was, so I had worked on a lot of different ways to present this concept. And when I came up with A Future So Bright title, I was like, oh, I could make a little sunglass joke on the cover. And so I mocked that up and I presented it to the designers, the cover designer. And I said to them, like, do not let me lock in on this because it's just funny to me. And I think it'll be a fun little nod to people who know. But like, by no means should this be absolutely the way we go forward. Like, if you've got better ideas. But they were already in love with it too. So so we were very happy to execute on this. And then they changed the yellow. I actually went and found these sunglasses.
Oh, wow.
To try to match the yellow. They're from a company called Parafina. So speaking of strategic optimism, this company that makes these sunglasses is called Parafina. They're based in Paraguay. Okay. And they contribute 5% of their proceeds, their profits, to getting supplies to school kids.
Oh, great.
And they also use recycled materials like ocean plastics and tires and things like that to make the sunglasses. So it's a really cool sort of closed loop sustainability sort of thing. So it felt like a very on brand like tie-in for the book. So these are my book sunglasses.
Spectacular. They're going to start sending you cases of them. Here you go.
I sure hope so. And I'll distribute them happily.
Before I get over to the plug section and some fun stuff, which you did not do the first time you were on Thrive Loud, so we'll have fun doing that.
Yeah, I did fun stuff the first time I was on.
We did, but you did like movie quotes and stuff like that. But there's some of the other stuff I think we haven't done, which I'm looking forward to.
You got me talking about Eminem.
That's true. I think we actually had the fastest rap going on, right? Wasn't that what we were doing? We might have even opened it up. When you're thinking about what you want the reader to take from this message, and I love this because speakers are great at this because you walk out of a room knowing the message that you want to take, but with a book which has a lot of content, it can get you in certain avenues. What's the overall thing that you want the readers to walk away with from A Future So Bright?
Yeah, one of the underlying themes that I think is a really important theme is that everything is connected. And that is a really empowering idea to me. It does connect this idea of agency. Like every decision we make connects to later consequences and later results and later outcomes that are hopefully positive, just as much as they can be negative. But I think we have the opportunity to make those decisions in ways that they can actually produce positive outcomes. So remembering that everything is connected, I think, is a really great opportunity for when we're in the midst of a pandemic where we know that our decisions impact others. It's a really great opportunity for thinking about climate change and knowing that the world, the sort of environment that we are in, the atmosphere, the weather we're experiencing is not necessarily the same as what someone on the other side of the world is experiencing, but that we're all affected by climate change on some macro level. It's important to remember that everything is connected when it comes to, data-driven experiences and algorithmically optimized experiences and misinformation and disinformation, as I talk about in this book. There's just an awful lot of topics in which it's really important to come back to this central theme of how humans are connected to other humans and how, we're all connected to the world around us. And that theme, I think, can be really empowering for leaders. I think thinking about how your organization, functions with purpose and actually exists in the world in not just a profit generating way, not just a growth oriented way, but in a way that actually aligns with the thriving of humanity. I think that's a really hopeful and empowering message for leaders. And I hope that that's the one that they walk away with.
Spectacular.
Thanks.
All right, let's do the plug section here. We've got things for the viewers. They can see links all over the place, but let's let the listeners know where they can connect to you. We'll put all the social links in there, but give everybody that little plug section here for them to know where to get the book and everything.
Sure. So the book website is futuresobrightbook.com, which secretly that redirects to koinsights.com and a page on that. So you can just go to my company's website, koinsights.com. I'm, as you see if you're seeing the video, you're seeing that my handle on Twitter is Kate O, and on Instagram it's Kate O'Neill. That's EILL. People are always and forever misspelling O'Neill, so that's that. Kate O'Neill on Instagram, Kate O on Twitter. Find me everywhere. I mean, my about page on koinsights.com has links to all the other social media you could possibly want as well.
Super. You ready to? We're going to do an advanced version of Fun Street for you here.
Let's do it.
So what I want to do now is what we call the speed round. And the way this works is I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to share with the listeners the first thing that comes to your mind. Most of these things are things that lift you up, motivate you, make you feel good, make you thrive.
All right. You ready, little Willie? My cat's over there.
Your cat's over there too? Okay, yeah. Well, the cat could be part of it too.
Okay.
Of late, a song that pumps you up or is kind of like your jam today.
Dandy in the Underworld by, who is it? T-Rex? Can't remember who did that. Dandy in the Underworld. Just look it up, folks. It's a fantastic song.
A favorite food that is not a dessert.
Oh, Pod CU. The noodles.
Oh, the noodles. Oh, wow.
So good. Yeah. I get them from Nudies here in Hell's Kitchen. Delish.
Nice. All right. We got to check that one out. A favorite dessert.
Chocolate. Just pieces of chocolate.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Walking. I walk a lot in Central Park, but not as often, not every day.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Social media, I guess.
I guess, as we're promoting this across several different channels. If I could snap my fingers, Kate O'Neill, and you could be anywhere in the world, where are you?
Paris. It's always Paris. Yeah.
Last
time I could have dinner with Rahaf Harfouche. Hello, Rahaf. And hang out with my friends there in Paris.
Spectacular. I love it.
Yeah.
Last thing before we go out there. I never ask you this question because I always feel it's like too on the nose. But of late, do you have a favorite piece of tech that you're using more often today, or an app that maybe is something that you're like become your favorite? Because I always feel like that's not dehumanizing it, but I always want to know what connects with you the most right now.
It's funny, I am on, I think, my 5th iPad that I've had since the iPad came out, whenever it came out, 2008 or 9 or whatever it was. And I get them and then I, sell them, and I'd never really have it catch. But this time around, it's really caught. Like, I'm actually reading on Kindle all the time, and the New York Times crossword app, like, I'm a total nerd for.
Totally.
Love that.
I'm totally with you, by the way. This thing is like, I can't get enough of, I'll show the listeners there. I can't get enough of it. It's like spectacular. And I do it on the phone and it syncs up to the app too. Yeah.
We should be friends on it. And then we can, judge each other for how slow we are.
Yeah, I'd be the slower one. I stopped basically. I can't get past Thursday. We're recording this on a Thursday. Tomorrow, the next day, forget about it. I can go restart on Sunday.
Okay. I am maintaining a streak. It's one of the things that I am really fanatical about maintaining a streak. I do my crossword every day. I'm up to 57-day streak.
Wow.
I read every day, try to. And I do Duolingo every day. So I study as many languages as I possibly can. I'm working on Swahili now. And,
Wow.
that's like my 20th language, I think. I try to do that every day. So I'm up to 620 days or something of streak on Duolingo. And then I'm forgetting one. But yeah, Readwise, which Tamsin Webster introduced me to. If you don't know it, it's a great tool. You sign up for Readwise, and it takes all the highlights you've done on Kindle, or maybe your favorites on Twitter, like anywhere you've highlighted text or said, like, I want to refer back to this. And it sends you a short list of them every day so you can refresh. It's like a study aid.
I love that.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
It's really cool because like all these little things you've highlighted, you actually get a chance to review now and then. So I maintain a streak on that too. I think I'm up to like 200 days of reviewing my Readwise highlights. So
I love it.
I'm a total nerd about it. I think it's a very Seinfeld thing, you know, like I got to keep the streak going. I feel like that's the only thing I've ever taken away from Seinfeld.
He had a vomit streak going for 17 years until he had a black and white cookie that went wrong. Kate O'Neill, a future so bright. So great to reconnect with you. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud. Great to connect with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. And to all our listeners out there, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.